All right. We are going live here in just a few seconds. Got to make sure I'm on my page here. Tag coach. Okay. And welcome to the Super Terb Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Terbet, your local real estate expert in the Raleigh-Durham, or what we like to call Triangle area, aka Coach Terb, aka Super Terb. And I can't be more excited about my guest that I have on today's show. He and I actually go way back. It's Coach Bobby Lutz, former head coach of the Charlotte 49ers. I was actually privileged to be under coach from 1999 to 2002 when I was a student assistant, or we like to call manager. And the stories that I have from coach and how he helped shape me get into my own coaching career and what I do in real estate is unmatched. And so I can't wait for him to get on and tell his story. Just a couple tidbits that we'll share. Coach Lutz is the all-time winningest coach in Charlotte history with 218 wins. He led our team to 5 NCAA tournaments, 3 NIT tournaments. He's coached at the professional level with the Chicago Bulls G League affiliate, the Windy City Bulls, and now he's the special assistant coach to the head coach at Nebraska, Coach Hoiberg. Prior to that, he was also the associate head coach for the NC State Wolfpack that many of you know him from. So I cannot wait to have him on here in just a couple seconds. But before I do so, you know, when I started this podcast, I did it to talk about real estate, business, sports, and local beer in the Triangle. So I want to do a little bit of a real estate update for everyone listening in. I just did my Monday Market video update for the month of January. We do everything with Triangle MLS a month behind. So we got January stats just a couple days ago. And I wanted to compare those stats, guys, to January of 2020 pre-COVID. And it's pretty amazing. Again, you guys keep hearing us tell you we need listings, we need listings, we need inventory. It's amazing to see the dramatic decrease of listings over the last year. We are down 63%. Inventory is down 63% in Wake County. We are down to a 0.7 month supply of homes, down from 1.9 month supply. Because of the low supply, again, guys, the demand is high. All right, the demand is high. We are up 12% as our average sales price. It's went from $362 to $405,000. So, and it's also the first time that I can remember that our average sales price, the list price, is over 100%. It went from like 98.5% to 100.3%. So what does that mean? If we list our homes correctly, you're getting multiple offers and you're going to be selling for over asking. There's no better time to sell. And I know a lot of times we get the response, well, we don't know where we're going to go. But let's start that conversation. I'll be happy to do a market analysis for you to tell you what our team can do to sell your home for max value and then help paint the picture to get to that next chapter of your life, whether that's temporary housing, your dream home, you downsize, you have an investment property you need to sell. We're here to help in any way to accomplish your real estate goals. So something else that I did just last week was calling friends of mine that have bought within the last 12 to 36 months. And it's pretty amazing for me to call people that just bought a home 6 months ago and say, you could sell your home for 25 to 30,000 more. I'm actually going out to see some past clients / friends from I sold 3.5 years ago, and they have probably the ability to sell their home for over $100,000 that they paid for it. So guys, I can't say it enough. If you're thinking about selling in this market, there's no better time. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to have head coach Bobby Lutz, former head coach of the Charlotte 49ers, to join me. So stay tuned. And welcome back to the Super Terb Podcast. Again, I have my featured guest this week, Coach Bobby Lutz. Say hello, Coach. How we doing, Terb? Everything all right? Everything's fantastic. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're on the road right now, aren't you?
Yeah, we have an extended road trip. Post-COVID. Playing 7 games in 12 days and 5 states. Had a big win at Penn State, and now play Maryland tomorrow night and Wednesday night.
All right, back to back.
Back to back, yeah.
Something for people that are listening, if you have a question for Coach, make sure you comment. I'll bring it on the screen, and we'll be able to ask any questions you may have, of course, edited version. We are being streamed live on Facebook and my YouTube channel. So before we start, Coach, just introduce yourself to everybody that's listening.
Yeah, I'm Bobby Lutz. I grew up in Catawba County, North Carolina. And that's still where my wife Janet and I have redid the boyhood home that I grew up in, and that'll always be our base, I think. Very good childhood playing or watching high-level softball 300 yards behind my house. Howard's Furniture's where my dad was co-manager. Come all over the country playing softball, but then, love baseball, but basketball even more. And after getting cut at UNC Charlotte, after a really good high school career, I was a really good high school baseball player and a pretty good basketball player. We lost in the state semifinals my senior year, 28-1. Had some small college baseball offers, more than basketball, a couple basketball, but I ended up going to UNC Charlotte on an academic scholarship and went out for the team and got cut. And long story short, missed athletics, but decided law school, went to law school, then quit law school so I could coach bandies, where I went to high school JV boys and girls and helped with the varsity, and went from there to after winning a state championship at Parkwood High School in Monroe in the girls, then ended up going to Clemson and then Pfeiffer, which was fun. And then UNC Charlotte obviously was a great run, and just had a really good career and been very blessed to be able to coach basketball.
So you played sports growing up. You mentioned baseball, basketball. You're also a really good golfer, if I remember. Have you been able to play much golf with COVID?
Well, I actually played a good bit last year, because after the season was over, came home from the conference tournament mid-March, thinking I'd be here in North Carolina for a couple, few weeks, and then never went back. So I walked, but one of my high school best friends, Rick Wentz, had a group of older guys that play early in the morning at a local golf course. And so I jumped in there thinking it'd be temporary, but, then Fred Hoiberg, our head coach, who's a super guy and really knows he had major heart surgery twice. They cracked open his chest, and he's very he's got his priorities in order, and he wants us to be safe. So he said stay. We can do things by Zoom, and we talk in the off season. In my role, I'm not a recruiter anymore. Just help with game strategy and especially offensive philosophy. And so anyway, I could do it from North Carolina. So I played a bunch of golf, played, probably 75, 80 rounds, and then Zoom. And, so that was fun. But during the season, I never play. So from October till March, I play zero golf. And in Nebraska, you have no shot at playing golf anyway. So until April, probably. So
right.
Love golf.
Well, that's cool. We'll get into that. Going over offensive strategy and everything. I'm going to touch on that here in a little bit. So you mentioned you went to law school, but did you always know you wanted to coach?
Yeah, I really did. Even in high school, Coach Balls, my high school coach, was in the North Carolina Hall of Fame and won over 600 games. He's just a different philosophy than most guys. We played all zone, but we pressed and we played up tempo. But I really thought the game and picked his brain a lot on why are we doing this or why are we not doing that? And so he gave me, as a senior, he gave me a lot of freedom really to run our team. And I loved it. And, again, I grew up, my dad's in the softball Hall of Fame. He won over 80% and won 3 national championships in softball at the highest level, not the drink a bunch of beer, have a keg at first and third type softball, made
it competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of AA, AAA baseball players who didn't make it at that level played softball when their careers were over. So they were very competitive. It was fun to be around. So, anyway, so I helped coach that. I coached third base when I was 15 years old for all the men. I studied the outfielders who had the best arms, so that's always kind of been in my nature. So when I went to Charlotte and then got cut, I didn't know what to do. I drive back and watch my high school team play. So I knew I wanted it, but, good Lord gave me a great memory. I was valedictorian in my high school class. Everybody, including my high school coach, Bill Ball, said, you can do better than coaching and teaching. And, really, it probably meant you can make more money. And my uncle wanted me to be a lawyer, and with all the businesses that he had, from steakhouses to furniture stores, bowling alleys. He ran Charlotte Motor Speedway for 15 years. And so, and I like studying the law, but I missed it. I always knew down deep that I wanted to teach and coach. And so very, very fortunate to get back at Bandy's, and then, got some breaks Softball actually got my first break.
You may have already answered this, but what was your first job, coaching job?
My first coaching job was when
they say basketball coaching job.
Yeah. When I quit law school, the reason I quit law school is I came back to visit Bandy's High School during my midterm break. We just taken practice exams, and I did well. And I saw my high school coach, and he said, "Hey, our JV boys and girls coach, his father died, and he's got to go to Virginia and literally help his mom run the farm that they had." He said, and he knew I had a lot of friends who were coaches from my college days. My roommate was a coach, et cetera. And I said, "Coach, I want the job." He tried to talk me out of it. And I said, no. So I coached both JV boys and girls for 2 years. And I was assistant for varsity girls and varsity boys. So I was literally in the gym, from as soon as school's out till 8 or 9 at night, every night that we had practice, and then coached my teams on Mondays and Thursdays, and then practice and went with the varsity on Tuesdays and Fridays. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. That was as much fun as anything I've ever done.
So a little bit of a two-part question. Did you ever have a moment when you started coaching that you said, I'm going to get out? Or, obviously, you started at the high school level, but was there a time where going through the ranks, you thought about maybe getting out and doing something else? Well, and then which then leads me, what was your first head coaching job?
Yeah. So honestly, we won at Bandy's. We won 3 state championships, 2 girls and 1 boys during my years. And we won 3 JV championships. So, winning's fun. Winning beats
Yes, it is.
It beats losing every time. And no matter if you played bad, it doesn't matter. Winning's just fun. So I didn't have any problems. And then I went to Clemson, with Cliff Ellis as a graduate assistant for 2 years. And that was amazing to be in the ACC. I grew up dreaming of playing in the ACC. Obviously wasn't good enough, but, and we had some good moments beating, everybody but Duke. We beat everybody but Duke in our 2 years there. It kept Lefty Drizel from winning his 500th game. That was amazing. They had 499 wins with Bias and Branch and Gatlin. And I did the scout, and I recommended we play triangle and 2 the whole game. And every time Gatlin would make a shot, no 3-point line back then, but he'd make a shot, and Coach Ellis would look at me like, "Are you sure?" He ended up with 26, but we couldn't have guarded Bias and Branch.
No doubt.
And we held both of those guys to way under their averages and won the game. But anyway, so
did you call the triangle 230 back then as well?
He just called it triangle. I got
cool. it. Now Cliff is at Coastal with Coach Moss, isn't he?
That's
now
right.
That's what.
That's
cool. Yeah. So then you went to a small school that many may or may not know of, Pfeiffer.
Yeah, and Pfeiffer's where go back to your original question. Pfeiffer is where, and I actually was recruited to play baseball there by Coach Farabee coming out of high school, and so I knew the school a little bit, tiny but good people, and that was where we inherited a situation where we weren't very good at all. And I've been spoiled my whole life, been on winning teams. I've never been on a losing team ever. Little league, any sport, high school, and then coaching high school. So got to Pfeiffer, and as I've said many times, we were picked to finish dead last. And for 2 years, we didn't disappoint anybody. We were dead last. And, the second year, I had to kick 2 guys off the team that I inherited who were pretty good players, but just not quite the right guys for our program, and weren't really team guys. And you got to get the wrong people off the bus before you can get the right people on the bus, is what Collins said, and good to great. And I think it's true. So I did that, and we finished the year playing managers and a few scholarship guys. And I thought about quitting, and Janet wouldn't let me. She was my rock, and just said, "You're great at this. Don't quit." And we hung in there and got better players, and all of a sudden I became a better coach.
That's fantastic. This leads me to, because this is great how this is going. So you said you had to get rid of a couple guys, and it probably still applies today, or maybe it's evolved as you've coached. But what would you say your philosophy or / mission statement when it comes to running a program, your program? I know now you've been also assistants, but when you're a head coach, what would say was that? What was important to you, and then what traits did you look for in a player when recruiting? Because obviously at Pfeiffer or some other schools, you may not get all the blue chips or tops, but you need guys that come in and feel what you want to do and get the best out of them.
Yeah, there's several levels to that. So, but I think it applies to business too. As I said, you have to get the wrong people away from your program, and that's sometimes not easy. But then to get the right people, and the right people for me are people who have balance and priorities. Some coaches, it's 24/7 every day basketball, and don't get me wrong, basketball's got to be important, but in recruiting and hiring your staff, I want people who are winners, who are competitive, but have balance in their life. And for me, that's faith and family should come first, always, in every way. And, if there's something that you've got to deal with your family and you have to miss practice, I never question that. And I don't think any guys abused it. They could have maybe, because I told them, I will never question you if you say I need to be home. So for me, faith and family's first. And then at the college level, I want academics to be second. We have a good record of guys graduating that wanted to graduate, and high percentage at both Pfeiffer and Charlotte. But then third has to be basketball. It has to be really special. And I when I speak to youth groups, it doesn't have to be basketball. I tell them, do that. Faith, family, take care of school, and then find something that you truly love. Music, art, theater, whatever it is, and you got to commit to it. You got to sacrifice some other things. Doesn't mean you can't have a good social life and enjoy the college experience. You should, but if you want to be an elite athlete and an elite team that wins at the highest level, then you have to sacrifice some of that and make sure basketball is third behind those other two things. And I try to recruit those type of guys. And once you get the core culture in place, you can take a chance on a guy who's talented and you think has a good heart, and maybe he's had some issues. Yeah. You can have a team full of those guys, but I always try to judge. At heart, is he a good young man? And if he is, and just needs a second chance or guidance, we took some chances on guys, but we didn't have a team full of them, and we had great leadership and upperclassmen who helped enforce the things that we need to do to be great. And again, I think that works for most every organization.
All right, that's my sister chiming in there. She's loving this, Coach. This is great. So you're talking about players, and so here's another question for you. How about staff? How do you hire assistants or people that are around you that I always say when I coached, I coached for 4 years. Thanks to you helping me get my foot in the door. But Coach Charlie Schaaf was the head coach of Ouachita Baptist, where I was. And I thought what Coach did was he did a great job of creating ownership of the program and allowed me to put my opinion or 2 cents in. He didn't want a yes man. He wanted me to sometimes argue with him on what we should do. Obviously, he was the boss. But you also need people that are going to probably extend what you're thinking to get the results you're looking. So is it pretty much the same characteristics?
Yeah. First, let me quickly go back. I said it was on several levels. That's philosophically the type of how to recruit. But I love shooters, and you know that. And but if you couldn't shoot, I want shooters and athletes. But you can't always get both of those at the same time. But if they can't shoot, they better really be athletic and be great defenders, rebounders, et cetera. Shooters and fetchers. If they can't shoot it, then go fetch it. Either go get it defensively or go rebound it. As far as the staff, and I had to let a guy go at Pfeiffer after my first year. He wasn't a bad guy, but his allegiance to the previous coach, I inherited him. And he ended up having a nice high school coaching career, helped him get that job, and that's really – it fit him, but he didn't have the same philosophy playing wise. They wanted to play slower, the team before me. I wanted to play fast, and so recruiting, you have to have everything tied together. A guy that might have been good for them, walking it up and pounding it inside, wouldn't be good for me. I needed, and I needed guys that I would give freedom offensively as long as they play really hard defensively. As long as they were willing to do the tough stuff, I was going to, I'm not going to get them for one bad shot. I'm not going to yank them out. I want them playing with offensive freedom. As far as staff, after we made that move and helped him get a job, I brought guys who had similar philosophies, and I agree. Some coaches are a little paranoid, and you want to hear different things, and but once we leave the room, we talk about it, whether it's recruiting, whether it's style play. How we're going to play a particular team. Once you go out of that room and close door and go to the team, it's got to be united. Even disagree. Right or wrong, the head coach makes the decision.
Yep.
And having been both, assistant first and a head coach and now assistant again, I think I understand that and how important that is to be totally bought in, because those players are very smart and they can read any type of dissension or disagreement by assistant coaches. And it might not even be intentional, but you have to really be careful to all be on the same page. And
no question. Yeah. I learned that early on too in my career, as it's we and not I. And I even today with our real estate business here, when we address the team, you may get that listing, but it's our listing, meaning our team's listing as far as marketing and helping people. I think that goes a long way. So you were at Pfeiffer, had a great career there. Then you went to Charlotte, correct? From Pfeiffer. Now, is that under Coach Watkins?
No, actually.
No, is that when you went to – you go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, so what happened was at Pfeiffer, we were in NAI, and it still exists, but it's not – it was more expensive because the NCAA obviously had more money and paid for you. So for Pfeiffer as a school, they decided to go to Division II. I supported. I was the AD, but I honestly didn't really agree with it. Athletically, Pfeiffer fit best, in my opinion, respectfully, in the NAI. And we went to 6 straight national tournaments and lost in the national championship game my last year. And Gardner Webb, Eddie Holbrook, who's a legend in coaching in North Carolina, if you really know basketball, he coached at Gardner Webb back when they were really good, and he had it going at a high level. He was the vice president, and he convinced me to come to Gardner Webb, where they were D2, but they had more money, more resources, and I didn't have to be AD. I made a lot more money and just coach basketball. And with daughters growing up, that would give me more time to have that balance with Natalie and Christine. So I actually accepted. I accepted the Gardner Webb job, but told them, President White and Eddie Holbrook, who I think a lot of both of them, that I'd been turned down by Coach Mullins twice to join UNC Charlotte staff. He told me about 3 years before that the next time he had an opening, he would highly consider me and probably hire me. So I told him. And so he happened to call me about the same time in March and said, "It looks like one of my guys may get a job." And I said, "Well, I want it." And then this Gardner Webb opportunity came, and it was a good move. If I didn't get that, so I told them, I'll take the job, but if Charlotte has an opening, I'm going. It doesn't matter if it happens soon or later. And so I take the job in April. Coach Moxley and I recruit 8 guys in 2 months. And June the 2nd, Coach Mullins calls and says, "I got a spot open. Do you want it?" And I struggled with it. My dad Dad said, "Bobby, I don't know if you should do that." And I said, "Dad, I told them this was, that if this job opened, that's where I want to be. I want to get to Division I. As good as we were at Pfeiffer, we were really good. I mean, I had got an NBA, Antonio Harvey, for 6 years, he played in the NBA. Tony Smith played 18 years overseas. I mean, these guys could play for us at Nebraska right now. It's not even close. So, but I couldn't get a D1 job. So it was my break. And so I went to Gardner Webb and told him, "I'm sorry, but this is exactly what happened." And so I came to UNC Charlotte. It was Coach Mullins last year, and he told me that. He said, "This is probably my last year, so you're taking a gamble. Because, we hope Melvin gets the job, Melvin Watkins, but if he doesn't, I could be out." So it was a big risk, but Janet and I talked about it. It was, we wanted to get to the next level. We had literally we've been to 3 Final Fours at Pfeiffer. We're top 25 every year for 6 years. So we'd done about all we could do there. So it was the right time, and we prayed about it, and that's what we did.
So Melvin was on staff with Mullins, and then Mullins retired, and then Coach Watkins got the job. I think that's the year I actually came to Charlotte as a freshman. I think that's when we had DeMarco and Sean Colson and Shaw. Had a great team that year, and then Watkins gets the head coaching job at Texas A&M. And then you applied. Was that your job, as far as the plan, or did you have to apply and interview?
It was a war to get it, a war. So and Melvin's too. So Richard Williams was at Mississippi State. I know I go on too long, so cut me off if you need to.
Oh, no. This is awesome. You go as long as you want, Coach.
So UNC Charlotte, they may try to deny it, but UNC Charlotte wanted Richard Williams. He took Mississippi State to the Final Four, but he was looking for a change, and they went after him. But I think he really just used it to get more money at Mississippi State. That's the way our business works. But anyway, so it drug out before Melvin got the job. Then he got it. And, I helped recruit. I mean, I love those guys. Sean Colson, Coach wasn't sure if we needed a point guard. I said, I think we need one. And he listened, and we brought Sean in, and he averaged 8 assists a game for 2 years. It was terrific. Versatile Shaw. I went to Ogden, Utah. Holy cow, snow and stuff everywhere. I loved him. High character, unbelievable young man. And Galen Young. I mean, I helped recruit all those guys.
Was Tremaine Gardner on that team, or did he come a little later?
Tremaine, no, he was early. He actually was year. For Coach Mullins' last year was when he was a freshman, and then Tremaine was really good. Yeah, Melvin. So we had 2 great years with Melvin. We won the first round both years, and then when he left, of course, the job hadn't been twice to the tournament. Little better job now than people want. So more people involved, and in fact, it went on for about 3 weeks, and there was an article in the paper. And they usually didn't write it if they didn't have inside info. So someone told them that Matt Doherty was going to be the head coach instead of me. And I remember it. I was in Middleton. I remember exactly where I was in our house that Harold Blackwelder of Best Way Realty sold me. And I've had great realtors and great managers. I want to talk about all the great managers we've had. But I've had great realtors. I had a great realtor in Lincoln too. It's phenomenal. We've been lucky. But so I'm in Middleton at the house, and I see this in the paper, and I call Mark Cologne, who's the SID, and I said, Mark, tell me this isn't true. He said, I don't know. He said, I don't. I said, well, I just want to make sure you guys know, I'm not staying. I'll go with Melvin. If I don't get the job, I'm going with Melvin. It's going to be a lot more money. I as much as I love it here, if I'm not the guy to run the program, it's time for me to move on. I don't know what happened, but 48 hours later, they offered me the job.
That's great.
And, so thank you.
So what was that feeling? You're coaching your alma mater. I mean, would you say that was your dream job at the time, or?
It was because, I grew up an ACC fan. I'm not going to lie about that, but I'd learned the business a little bit, that for me, if I could get UNC Charlotte, that's as good a job as I could get. And honestly, it's the job I wanted. I loved it. Janet, my wife, went there. My sister went to Charlotte. I was like the first guy from Bandy's high school. I got a Bonnie Cone scholarship, academic scholarship, and went to UNC Charlotte. And then a lot of people, my cousin Doug, the year after, went to Charlotte. So a lot of people from Bandy started going to UNC Charlotte. It wasn't a thing really until I kind of went. It just by the way things worked out. So for me to be able to coach at Charlotte after being at Fife for 9 years and trying so hard to get anywhere Division I, it's so hard. Barriers to entry in business is hard in anything. And in coaching, as you went to junior college. It's hard to get to the next step. There's so many qualified people. So it was a dream job, and it was an amazing feeling to be head coach.
I remember, what you just said when I was at Ouachita, I had a great boss with Coach Schaaf. I never thought I was working. It was a lot of hard work, but I never thought it. But it came down. Am I ready to move 5 times in 5 years to chase this? I remember you and I spoke briefly. I looked into Pfeiffer. Coach Davis was there, I think, and tried to get closure to him. What's interesting is Coach Moss got the Wilmington job the year I was moving home. And in March, we just bought a house. It was March or April, bought a house in Raleigh. And Coach Moss calls me and says, are you sure are you done? And at that time, my wife, Leslie, got a job. I'm moving home, and I said, Coach, I've got to follow this path. But I always kind of wonder what if, because the one regret, not as a regret, but I wish could have found out what it was like going into a jamboree or a gym with the Division I logo on my shirt, because Ouachita was the Gulf South Conference. We were Division II. It was a great level, but we had to get Division I talent with Division II grades, and so that would be the only regret. But I can't. The experience that I had between the ropes and to coach and be a manager was just amazing. Now, correct me, I believe you're the winningest coach in Charlotte history, correct? With 218 wins.
That's correct. And by the way, you made a good choice. You could have been a really good coach, but obviously this has worked out great for your family. Things turn out the way maybe they're supposed to.
I always believe there's a bigger power, man, and you follow your heart, and things are supposed to happen the way. And now it's one of my hashtags, Coach Terb. I help people buy and sell real estate, and it's such an emotional thing. To be able to help navigate through that process, I enjoy doing that. And coaching, though, prepared me for this, because Not every day's the same. It's not a 9-to-5 job. Leslie knew if we lost, I wasn't coming home probably that night.
Yeah,
I was watching film at the gym with Coach. So, so you're at Charlotte, 12 years, I believe.
What was head coach?
Head coach, and 8 postseason tournaments. I'm biased. I don't think they've been the same since they made the decision they did, but that's a whole nother top podcast. What would you attribute to your success at Charlotte? Because in today's world, I know you started coaching, so you experienced the .com into the social media wave.
Yeah.
You were there with Facebook, Twitter, with guys saying, I remember Curtis Nash and I always having the cool phones, when they were coming out so we could text each other. But what do you attribute to the success that you had at Charlotte?
Yeah. I think we were able to attract, first of all, a great staff. Once I got the job, I was able to bring back a lot of guys that I knew and trusted well. And, the 2 months at Gardner-Webb, we actually met Orlando Early, who was a leftover assistant at Gardner-Webb, who another podcast, an administrator wanted to get rid of him, but I liked him and I fought for him and kept him. But then I helped him get the Western Carolina job. He actually got a job at Western Carolina like 2 weeks before I went back to Charlotte. But anyway, so I brought him. It's like you're saying, a higher power and things go for a reason. Janet always said we met Orlando for a reason. And when I got to Charlotte, I hired him. I brought Rob Moxley and Benny. Eventually, but all there. So getting that staff together was crucial. And then we had good players. I mean, we'd recruited Melvin and and then Butch Pierre, who was there. We'd recruited some really good players, and that helps. But we kept that going. And honestly, my style is very emotional. As an assistant, I'm very calm. Because that's what I'm supposed to be. But as a head coach, I'm a screamer. but I'm a hugger. I'm yelling at them. I'm demanding at a high level, but I'm also filling them up with confidence and shoot it. I texted to you or sent a message last time. Joby was a freshman and he was struggling. I'll never forget it. He doesn't probably, but certain things you remember. And he missed a couple shots, and then he passed up. He wouldn't take a couple because he had missed them, but they were open. I took him out, and he was upset. As good a Christian as he is, he would get mad, if you took him out. And he mumbled, and I said, "Look, if you're not going to shoot, I'm not going to put you back in the game. That's what you're here for. You're a shooter."
Not many coaches say that. He's got a green light.
You've got the green light when you're open, and he didn't take bad shots. So anyway, I tried to get guys that responded to that. We recruited to that style of play and to me that could handle me. Damon Brown, for example, if I wasn't yelling at him, he didn't think I was serious. He came up from inner city Baltimore, tough area. I mean, lost friends to guns, shootings. I mean, so seriously, if I wasn't screaming at him, he didn't think I was, really serious. And,
it's interesting how you say that, because you've got to coach kids differently. With one kid you can yell at, you may need to coach behind in your office.
So exactly. So to me, you got to, leadership is treating guys fairly, but not the same. It's easy to say everybody has to follow these rules. It's exactly the same. To me, that works for some people, not for me, because each guy's motivated differently. And I think you have to, be fair. You can't show favoritism, but you've got to adjust. And a great example of that was Jermaine. When Jermaine came in, Williams from San Jacinto Junior College, 6'10", braids, tattoos everywhere before there were that many tattoos. You look at him, you think he's a gangster, but he was the mildest, most wonderful guy. But it took me a while to learn that. I yelled at him. He would go in a shell. He's big, tough, you think. But I learned that you whisper to him. You want him to respond, and he responded unbelievably well once I figured that out. And again, I didn't treat him differently. I mean, I treated him differently, but I didn't give him favoritism, really. I figured out what made him work, what motivated him, and tried to coach to his strengths. And, so I think those are the things. Great players, great staff, and we're all on the same page. And, and then we got that winning culture going. And then when games got close, some teams find a way to win. Some teams choke. You can call it choking. You can call it, they're just unlucky, whatever you want to call it. But we had it rolling where, we were winning a lot of those close games.
Yes. No, it was amazing. So you were at Charlotte. Things happened where you had to leave there, and then you went to Iowa State, correct? Was the next stop?
Yeah. So, as quickly as possible. So, my parents were both in poor health, and obviously families, they'd come to every Charlotte game. They went to every Pfeiffer game in a custom van and stuff. So, that was very important to me. And I turned down the South Alabama job for more years and more money in 2007 because the new chancellor, it was obvious that I wasn't really the guy he wanted to run the program. So in 2007, I had a chance to go to South Alabama, but I met back with the administration and they said, why would you do that? So I stayed. But then in 2010, when they made the decision, I still had 4 years left on our contract. My parents were both sick. My mom was in the home already with Alzheimer's, 3 years in on that. And my dad had some heart issues. So for 2 months, I didn't do anything. I was going to get paid. But Fred Hoiberg called and wanted me to come. And in late April, early May, I also interviewed with Dana Altman. He took the Oregon job. And that would have been a great job, but just too far from family. And he had to know actually in mid-March. He wanted to know right after I got fired, will you come or not? And I said, I can't say that today. But Fred wanted me enough that he waited. And so in mid-June, late June, actually, I went to work for him at Iowa State. And it was a great year. It was good for me, refreshed me, different than Charlotte. And, so I was there for a year. Then my dad had a heart attack in February of that year. And so I came back when NC State opened, and Mark Gottfried offered me the job. Then I came to NC State after.
You guys had a great run at State, and you went postseason. How many years?
4 out of 5 that I was there. Sweet 16s, 2 Sweet 16s, and we're in out of bounds play from beating Kansas, who then beat Carolina because Kendall Marshall got hurt. I think Carolina was the better team, but Kendall Marshall got hurt that year. And I think we could have beat Carolina without Kendall Marshall. We lost close in the conference tournament on, 2 block charges in that game in Greensboro. At Carolina's end, it was a block. At our end, it was a charge. And it was that close a game. That's how, just like in anything, it's that close. But, so Sweet 16 it was State, and an out-of-bounds play. We made a mistake, and Kansas got a basket late in the game on an out-of-bounds play and beat us that year.
I remember that. Coach Perrin with the shout-out.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the best.
Well,
I know we could go on, and this is fantastic. So you went from then State to the Windy City Bulls, correct?
Yeah. So exactly.
And I know they were the D League, now G League affiliate for the Bulls. Do they still have the Windy City Bulls?
Yes,
they do. With everything going on, I just wanted to check there.
They do. It's less of a schedule this year, but yeah. So Fred, the connection there was Fred Hoiberg, great person, really intelligent coach, and that I spent my year at Iowa State from 10-11, and he understood. He really did when I went back home because of my dad and my mom's situation, and I could be back in the state. And I was able to see them until their deaths, a lot more than I would have if I'd have been at Iowa State. So dad passed in 2012 and then mom in 2014. But so when I had, I could stay at State, but I wanted to coach, and I could stay in State in a non-coaching situation. I didn't want to do that. And so I got an opportunity to go to with Fred, and I helped with the big team. Like in the summer league in Vegas, I was with the big team, and there were days that I was at practice with the Chicago Bulls. But my primary real duty was with the G League team, Windy City. That was fascinating.
I was going to say the cool thing about that, and for you to experience the professional level. What would you say is the number one the difference? You were obviously coached high major, been around great players there, but now you're at the pro level, probably more of a business situation. But what would you say, that what was different, and then what helped you as a coach? Did it help you, being at that level for the year you were there?
Yeah, absolutely. It is different. It is truly a business. And the thing is, you set whatever your rules are as standards. If guys don't adhere to it. You don't have to beg them; you just cut them. And the G League, everybody thinks, oh, it's hard to coach pros, and it probably would have been if I was dealing with Rondo and Wade and Jimmy Butler with the Chicago Bulls every day. But I was dealing with Spencer Dinwiddie, who ended up playing for us 10 games, and then he signed, and he's still with the New Jersey Nets. He's had a great pro career, but those guys are hungry. At that time they were making $25,000 and living in apartments that weren't very nice. So those guys kind of weeded themselves out. And the ones that rose to the top in terms of their commitment, dedication, those are the guys that you end up keeping in the G League. And there's a lot of turnover. So you learn to be flexible. You learn to adjust on the fly. You play a lot more games. And the NBA coaches, I know everybody says they don't play defense. I mean, you play a lot of games. When you're playing 4 games a week, it's hard to play with as much energy as you will in the playoffs. It is. But don't get it wrong. You have to play some defense, because if you don't play defense at the pro level, the rules defensively are different. You can't zone up as much, and they will just run the same play and isolate you play after play and expose that you can't guard. So don't buy into that you don't have to guard it all at the NBA. Yeah. That's not true.
Well, and I like watching the Hornets. The spacing at that level and the constant dribble handoffs, ball screens, movement, and now it's Diego and Job and I were talking about this. It's more of an open game than it was just 10 years ago. More shots, threes, running, small ball. So try to play, and they're playing 72 games. I think the Hornets are off tonight for the first time. They have 2 nights off in a row for the first time in 14 games. And they were playing with 8 guys last night because either injury or what have you. That's a bigger court too out there, man.
I learned a lot. Right.
So now you're at Nebraska with Coach Hoiberg again, and you're this special assistant to the coach, and sounds as like you're more of the game planning and X's and O's and strategy, but not out recruiting. Is that what you said before? Are you enjoying that role, Coach?
Well, I enjoy I'm limited by the NCAA rules, and honestly, not every school in the country follows that. If you watch closely on the benches, guys in my position will be out coaching the team. Mm-hmm. They're not supposed to. Literally, the special assistant's only supposed to coach the coaches or help the coaches. And in Nebraska, they adhere to the rules. Like black and white, and I respect that. But sometimes it's a little tough to watch down the side, and you see another guy who's not supposed to be coaching help coach. Because I miss that. I miss.
Yeah, that was like putting a steak in front of a dog. I can't see you not coaching.
I tell the coaches. So
you're by the benches going nuts.
I'm talking to the other assistants. I'm talking to Fred before timeouts, but I'm writing things down. But I'd love to just be able to talk to the players. So I miss that part of it, because you can't develop the relationship with the players if you can't deal with them on an individual level or a team level. So I miss that part, but I do enjoy the strategy and just being on a team. I was retired for 2 years after the Windy City year, played a lot of golf, had a lot of fun, did some consulting for coaches around the country. I flew all over the place, and Oregon, for example, and consulted and observed Florida, did different schools. But I miss being on a team, and so I'm glad to be back. Now, this grandson that we just had 7 months ago, that could change things. I could go back to retirement here. If I don't get a head job at a small level, I'd love to be a head coach one more time. If I could get that, I would do it. If not, I'll probably just stay at Nebraska until I decide to retire for good.
Well, we do have a question that came across from one of your former managers, John Shaw. How has the transfer portal impacted the player-coach dynamic? Are coaches reluctant to coach hard for the fear of a player will transfer?
Well, the transfer portal's changed everything, and transferring in general. And we're struggling a little bit, because when Fred was at Iowa State 11 years ago, there were certain schools that weren't going to take transfers. Now everybody takes transfers. It's not as easy to get the great ones. Honestly, the great transfer is harder to get, in my opinion, than a McDonald's All-American. They're equally hard. Don't get me wrong. Doesn't mean it's easy to get a McDonald's All-American, but those transfer guys, because they're older, they're mature, and so they come free in the spring, when you've just had that year where you're either one guy away from winning it all, or you think we're just not nearly good enough and we got to go get some guys. So it's like a feeding frenzy when that transfer portal, and you have to be on top of it. You have to stay alert to that and try to get involved without breaching the rules and doing things early. Although some people, let's be honest, some people do that. You want to be in position. You want to be, prepared to do that. And I think there are definitely some coaches that don't coach as hard because they're worried about people leaving, guys leaving. I think that, but you know what? They leave anyway. So for me, I would coach the way I always coached. And if they want to. Exactly.
Yeah, no question. So I'm going to have a few, what is, I know this is probably have several answers, but what's a top memory you have in your coaching career? Can you hear me, Coach?
You broke up a little bit, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What's a memory? Yeah. Can you hear me, Coach?
Yes.
Yep. What's a top memory that you have, or maybe a couple memories that you hold on to in coaching? That I know that's a loaded question. I know you have a lot of answers, but could you have a top memory?
There's so many great memories. I think overall it's just the pride of all the young people that my family, Janet and my girls and I have gotten to know, and to watch them grow and go out. And like I said earlier, the managers, Joe Campbell, Austin, John Shaw, the list goes on of all the accomplishments they have. That's why I quit law school to teach and coach, was to have an impact on young people and then follow it. So that's always going to be the greatest thing, is that overall guys graduating and going on. But as far as sports itself, this one will sound funny, but the only one year as my team won the last game of the season. That was Parkwood, 1982-83 girls varsity basketball. We won the state championship. That's an unbelievable memory to win it all. At Pfeiffer, we won 6 straight, and that was spectacular. But honestly, we got a little spoiled because we won 6 straight conference tournaments. The first conference championship at Charlotte, beating Cincinnati and Louisville back-to-back nights in Birmingham. It doesn't get much better than that. That was amazing. It really was. So a
lot of great memories, man.
There's so many.
Yeah, there's. We have one comment here. There are two Tony Smith. One had over 3,000 points, and the other had 800 assists.
No, that's the same guy.
Yeah.
His senior year, he averaged 30 and 10.
And we have another comment. Tim Lindenberger went to high school with you. Played baseball. It's really a man of high character. That's
He's
awesome.
Younger than me, Tim. Tim, we called him Tumbo back in the days, and he was a good baseball player and a great guy. He lives down in Eastern North Carolina now, so good for Tim. Good.
Rapid questions, real fast. Best shooter.
Woo!
First name comes to your mind, Coach. Best shooter.
Tony Smith.
Best point guard.
Tony Smith.
Best rebounder.
Ooh. Tie Jeff Pender from Pfeiffer and Curtis Withers, Charlotte.
Oh, Curtis Withers. All right. You need one shot on the wing. Who are you giving the ball to?
What now?
You got one shot on the wing, isolation. Who are you giving it to?
Well, if I can't give it to my wife, Janet, because she would have made it. She won 2 state championships. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man.
Who are you running zipper for?
I'm running zipper for Diego, but I love getting Joby a shot. And again, Tony Smith was incredible, and that's leaving out Damon Brown and some other good guys.
And I remember Rodney for the year we had Rodney.
Rodney was a special talent.
Yeah.
He is the most talented guy I've ever coached. Is Rodney White. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But Diego, Joby, and Tony Smith, those 3, it's just they're different, but they're all 3. The thing about those guys, the bigger the shot, the more likely they were to make it. All 3 of those guys, and that's a special quality.
And I always ask this question, and I like to hear all the answers. I stumped Diego and Joby on this last week, but the best advice you've ever received, and by who?
My father. He told me something. He said, well, actually, let's go to my grandfather instead. My grandfather told me, he was a high school principal, be who you is not what you ain't. Be true to yourself. That was his
I
way.
love that. I love that.
Be who you is. That doesn't mean you don't try to grow and become better, but always be true to yourself and don't try to be something you're not and trick people, because it won't work. And I've always tried to be as genuine as I possibly can.
All right. Well, I love that. And guys, I know, and you mentioned this, Coach, just a short time ago. I know you still have aspirations of becoming a head coach again. For people that see this podcast post, let's get Coach a job. If a program, especially back here closer to home, mid-major, really any major. I know, Coach, age is nothing but a number, and I know wherever you would coach, you'd run the program the right way, get the right players, and I know you would win. So I hope that happens for you.
Thanks. If it's supposed to, it will. I'd like to, but I'm so thankful and blessed to have had the opportunities I've had, and I turned down some head coaching jobs. So sometimes that comes back to haunt you, but they just weren't right for me at the time. So, but I thank you for those kind words, and if it's supposed to happen, it will.
No question. All right. Well, I thank you for coming on the Super Terb Podcast. Hang with me. I got one more segment to go. I got to feature my local beer of the week. But I'm going to put you backstage, and I can't thank you enough for coming on, and I wish you the best of luck the rest of the season, and hope you guys get home sooner, and congrats on everything going well with the family.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
All right, Coach. And welcome back to the Super Terb Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Terbet, your local real estate expert in the Raleigh-Durham Triangle area. Just finished with Coach Lutz. What an amazing segment. Thank you for all that have joined live to listen to Coach. I'm telling you what an impact guy he is. But I wanted to finish my podcast here with my last segment, my local beer of the week. Today, again, I've already featured them once with a beer that I like from them. But again, I just want to feature the Lonerider Brewery here in Raleigh. There's actually 2 locations. I wanted to highlight the location, the Hideout, which is in Wake Forest, not too far from where I live. Obviously, the other location's by the airport. But the Hideout, again, is just a great area. It's dog-friendly. You have food trucks. I know I've been there during COVID. They take everything safety protocol. They've got great beers there. They're probably 2 favorite beers there: Sweet Josie, which is their brown ale, or their Deadeye Jack, which is their porter. So go check them out. And as I always do every week, I like to give my shout out to Taylor's Wine Shop in North Raleigh, off Six Forks Road, north of Strickland. It's been there 40 years. It's right across the street from where I grew up. And go check them out, because you can buy Lonerider straight from Taylor's as well. So tell them Terb sent you. But I can't thank you guys enough for joining the Super Terb Podcast. Till next week, I'm going to have another great host. Can't thank you enough for the support, your referrals. And it's Michael Terbet, your local real estate expert of the Untitled Group, Coldwell Banker HPW, a.k.a. Super Terb. And remember, guys, who you work with matters, and I'll talk to you next week. We'll see you.